Hey, how are you? I'm so glad we got the tech situation figured out so we can chat today.
Yes.
I'm
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. I was taking a look at your website and it's always I was gonna say my favorite, but also kind of nerve-wracking for me to chat with other money people who are in the lane that you're in, the expertise that you're in, because this has historically been the area that I've been open with my listeners about, that I've been strengthening this kind of muscle and my relationship with money and really establishing a business that feels really solid for me and not rooted in anxiety around money. And so chatting with other people who have this expertise, I'm like, are we going to talk about something that's going to make me cry in the middle of the episode? Because that tends to be where I land.
I think part of strengthening the muscle is like crying sometimes about it and like figuring out how to talk about it because I feel like the other extreme is when we never talk about it and then it's just like piled on stress. So I feel like you have to cry through it to figure it
Ah,
out.
yeah. And that is what I've learned. In the past 3 years, I've been much more focused and intentional, I guess, on bridging this gap between the type of business owner I want to be who earns money and keeps money. Because I've been the business owner who's never had a problem earning the money. It's like keeping it and building the foundational, scalableness of it all. That's been the well, even if I fuck it up, I can just make more money. And that's always been how it's worked for me. And so in the last 3 years, I've been trying to just be calmer with the money and creating what I feel like is a more solid foundation. And that's scary sometimes.
But the good thing about, making it means that it's coming in, and I feel like just like with anything with a business, you just need a system for
Yeah.
keeping it.
Yeah.
So it's like if you have the skill to sell and to provide an excellent product, service, whatever it is that you're doing, then like you already have the 75%. You just need the 25% with the system.
Yeah. Part of that system is me having a bookkeeper in my back pocket who I can box and be like, what the fuck do I do with this inside of my accounting software or, revenue predictions or cash flow or whatever. And that has been a game changer to have someone who is knowledgeable in the obviously bookkeeping rules and regulations and whatever, but also financially she knows this industry really well and
Mhm.
how other people price and scale and what's predictable, and having that to be able to bounce off of, cuz I feel like I can talk to my girlfriends all day long about, I think I'm going to charge this and I'm going to have this offer and then I'm going to do this, and they're like, "Yes, go for that." And she's over here like, okay, well, what's the runway? Okay, well, what are the cogs that we need to be paying attention to? And those are like, oh, okay, I guess I have to figure those out first.
The less fun things.
Yeah. Well, when we were chatting before we hit record, you were letting me know a little bit more about your background. And I love, love, love hearing about the journey of people who are in an industry and in a niche and then completely pivot away from that industry and the transition of what that looks like. I chat with a lot of people inside of my programs of folks who are doing that in a corporate space. So they've been honing the skill and doing it for an agency or a big corporation for years and years and years. And then they finally say, I think I want to go out on my own and do this. And we pull their expertise from that arena and that space and plug it into typically a consulting offer. But your journey is a little bit different and a little bit even more such a different industry that you were leaving and going into. So, talk to me a little bit about that transition. What were you doing before you're doing what you do right now?
So it's funny that you say that because everybody thinks that, but it's so similar
I
what
love
I'm
it.
actually doing.
Love it.
Because so my background is in teaching, and that's what my master's degree is in education, 5 through 12 education. And so at my first teaching job, so and my business, I don't think I introduced myself, but my name is Brooke for all the listeners, and I own a company called Brooke Builds Wealth, which is a financial literacy company. Keyword literacy, literacy, education go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So my background in teaching and teaching kids actually lends itself beautifully because most people have like a middle school level of financial knowledge, honestly, and feel so nervous and scared about how to take the next steps, which is so talking to adults about money is not that different than creating a safe space for your younger students in your classroom to learn whatever content you're teaching them. And so I was teaching my students, and like I said, I had a personal interest in personal finance. I did investing and learning financial management on my own for my own personal finances. And I noticed that it was a huge issue at my school. There were a lot of teachers who didn't really understand how to work their retirement accounts or complaining about money. Teacher salaries where I live are pretty good, but it's tight compared to some other industries.
Mhm.
So I started helping educate teachers and running professional development on our retirement system in our school and what are your options. And it started to snowball from there, where I don't mainly help teachers. I do help some teachers, but I help people, beginners in all different industries, learning how to manage their personal finances and teaching them.
That is a wild. To talk I wanna dig into the conversation of the literacy aspect, especially of, like, what what do we think is the missing like, where is the bridge? What's the gap of what we're bringing to the table as adults and missing? You say we have, like, middle school level education around finances, like, obviously, we could talk about our education system, I think, for a long time, but and why does that continue to be such a big problem, do you think?
I have so many. You asked me my favorite question. Well, it's hard to say because now things are transitioning and financial education is becoming a graduation requirement in more states. So that makes me feel better about this. But if you asked me a few years ago, I would say that I think there's something sneaky and sticky going on with the government and big businesses because our country, there are so many rich people who profit off of people not knowing what's going on with their
Yes.
money. Like if you, in financial management, financial advisory firms, that's a huge spot. Credit cards, loan officers, like
Mm,
these people are profiting so much off of us not knowing what to do between investment fees, credit card fees, interest, like even just buying a car and not understanding how much you're going to pay in interest. So I don't have facts on that these industries have something to do with our education system and people not knowing, but it makes me feel like there could be some connection there because our lack of education for the general public does make a lot of people money
yeah.
in the financial world.
I feel like our financial illiteracy is a billion-dollar industry in and of itself, across all of the things that you were just saying, and I know even in my own family, growing up, like, my mom used, like, a payday loan place and I need an advance on this and really quickly learned I needed $300 to pay that bill, and now I owe thousands of dollars on that loan, and how quickly that can add up if you don't have the support to get you out of that fast and quickly learn from that mistake and have to then go rely on those things. And it's wild to me. So I have a 9-year-old, and I am adamant about teaching her, like, all of the things that we can, and I don't know how to because I didn't learn them. I wasn't taught them. I very much, like, have learned by messing it up a whole bunch of times and by trying to surround myself with people who know these things a little bit more than I do. And chat with my husband all the time about, like, okay, she has to understand, like, a credit card is good and bad and, like, what all of this means, and I don't know how to communicate that to her because I don't know the language. And it's wild to me of having these conversations with a 9-year-old, like, the version of me being so I want her to learn how to save and not, like, hoard all her money. I want her to learn how to spend smartly. I want her, invest in toys or things that she's buying with intention, and that balance, I guess, is for me really hard. Are there any tricks up your sleeve for kiddos, especially of like having that conversation? I'm sure, like you said, it's not much different with adults, but like, how do you start to build those healthy financial relationships with money really early on?
Well, remind me after the show because I'll share with you a template that
Please.
I've used so I started with teaching adults about money because I was teaching kids in
Yeah,
school and then I started teaching adults and then adults came to me who wanted education for their children. So
perfect.
I have had clients who are children, young children before their
Yes.
parents pay me to come to their house or meet with them online and help them set up, okay, I got this much money from Santa. Like, what am I gonna do with it? So I'll share with you a template, but I think a really easy thing for children is a percentage budget and
Mhm,
deciding what percentage of their income, because they do have income if they
mhm.
are lucky and privileged enough to be getting, monetary gifts from family members, or maybe they're babysitting or they're doing some type of job. But with that family in particular, I think the younger child was 9 actually, and so he was nowhere near getting a job yet. But
Mhm.
the systems that he has set up, I think the older child was 12 when I first met with the family I'm thinking of. And now the older child is 15 and he's getting his first job this summer. And he has his whole system. So he already knows where all that money from his first job is going to be going into this setup because
Yep.
of what he started doing with money that was coming in as gifts. So the percentages that are really easy and that you can look up are the 50-30-20 budget. And so the 50%, this budget could be used by anyone, but 50% towards needs, 20%, 50-30-20, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards savings. And that can be changed, especially for children. Maybe
Mhm.
they don't have to pay for as many needs, or maybe
Right.
you have them pay a little bit towards a need, like I don't know, buying your own toothpaste or something
Mhm,
like
mhm,
that.
mhm.
And then another percentage towards wants, which they can save up for their wants. If they wanted a Nintendo and it's going to take a whole year worth of birthday and holiday
Right.
money, that's something where they can still learn the skill. And then the 20 is traditionally called savings when you look up like the 50-30-20 budget, but I like to replace it with goals. And for my adult and child clients. And so those goals could be things like even thinking about college or their future, and that money can go into investments, and you can set up an investment account for them and teach them about how that can grow over time, so they are still playing a hand. Like, that's going to feel really good one day if when it's time to go to college, or if they're when they think, oh, when I grow up I might want to buy a house, so I'm going to put $10 of my money that I got for Christmas towards my house when I'm 30. Like, kids are excited about that actually, because they do picture their future
Yeah.
selves when they see them on TV or read books.
Yeah. My kid is over here like, "I'm never moving out." So
So the house goal won't work, but maybe
yeah,
a car or
maybe
something
a
like
car.
that.
Yeah. Okay. I love kind of the concept of even thinking about like, as of right now, we pay for all of her needs. Like that's not part of her budget of her system right now. Um, Toothpaste, clothes, all of those things. But I can see a benefit of like allocating the money that we're going to spend anyway and give her as income for something, right? Assign it to something. And then she has to then make the decision to allocate for needs. Like it's very, I think starting small would be really smart. Like you're just going to start paying for your toothpaste and your body wash. Like that's it.
Mhm.
Like your shower things. And when we're at the store, like using your debit card, because we did get her the green light debit card. I don't know if you're a
Heard
fan of
about
those.
it,
Okay.
yeah.
We love it because it's all app based, which is cool. But this is another question I have for you. This is just turning into a grilling session for
It's
you.
okay, it's my
But I
favorite
love it so
stuff.
much. So we got her the green light app. I'm a big proponent of like, I understand the psychology of learning with like physical currency, right? Like dollars and coins. I get that. And that is not the world we live in anymore.
Mhm,
And I think it's really easy to think that like digital money isn't real. And so I want to harness those habits through digital money because
mhm.
that is the world we live in. What is your thought process on that? And how do you translate digital money to a very real thing?
I think, well, on the plus side, a lot of times when kids get gift money, it might be physical. So
Mhm.
that will give give your daughter experience with that, I would say to set up this budget or this percentage for both, and it's going to be for money that comes in across the board. And you could have like I said, I have a little Canva template, and so she could plug in whether she gets $100 as cash that's income, or if she gets it through, someone Venmos you, and then that goes into her Greenlight app, so that both are visible to her, and they both mean or are worth the same thing and can be used the
Mhm.
same way, because I think that's the important piece, is making sure that we understand both are the same thing, and buying
Yeah.
with a credit card or a debit card is not free just because you don't see it. So maybe the
Yeah.
best way to do that is comparing it or equalizing it with physical cash that she then goes to the store and gives, the person the dollars, and the next time she comes and
Yeah.
she uses a card, and she's able to make that connection in her mind.
Yeah. We're definitely still in that connection of when we make change for her, she, like, thinks that, like, "Okay, but you have more money than I do now because you have a higher bill." Like, there's a math
Mm,
aspect of it all, and so we've had to break it down multiple times of, like, the amount of money is the same. You still have the same amount, I have the same amount, they're just in different denominations, and so it's just really funny of, like, I'm constantly reminded as a parent, you have to teach everything, like everything you have to teach. And they don't know the thing until
mhm.
they either see it or you teach it, and they're either going to mess up with it or not. But it's just so funny of like everything that comes across her desk in her mind of like, oh, this is brand new information.
Yeah, she has no experience with it,
Mhm.
and that's why a lot of people go into the world, right, with no, like, think how much time and energy you're putting into intentionally teaching into this,
Yeah.
and she's gonna be better for that, but, like, the amount of knowledge that she has with it, many people walk into the world, I mean, they know that a $10 bill is worth more than 5 singles,
Right.
adults, but in general, people feel so insecure about it because
Yes.
their parents didn't know or they didn't teach it, and then you get your first like grown up job maybe after college, and they give you this paycheck and you have no idea how to read it. They tell you to sign up for this thing for your retirement so that you're not on the street when you're 70 years old, and
Yep.
nobody knows. It's like the biggest gap in our education system ever.
Yeah. Well, and I love even talking to my kiddo or kids in general earlier about saving for a house or a car or college, even though like we're doing those things for her for car and college, but for a house. I love that idea because a lot of the like when you get your big kid job and they're having you, fill out how much do you want to deduct for your retirement. And as a kid, you're like, well, I want to keep all the money. And so I'm going to say zero. And what you're missing out on, especially if they match, is massive.
Mhm,
It's free money if you're missing out on that. But you can't conceptualize if you're 18 what you're gonna need at 70. And
mhm.
so building that habit now of, okay, yeah, you're 9, but what if you buy a house at 30, you're gonna need some money for that. And I mean, who knows if anyone can afford a house at 30 these days, like in 20 years. Like,
Yeah, oh
I
my
don't know.
gosh. But she will, because she'll be
Exactly.
the only one in her class.
She's like, "I got
Because
it, guys."
but seriously, like, and investing, so, and that's a whole nother skill and a whole nother, level, but
Mhm.
once, so all of this is top of mind because I recently saw the parent of the children who I had that meeting
Yeah.
with, and this past week actually, and she was telling me, because when we set up the percentages, one of the chunks was supposed to go towards investments, and so her child, who's now 15, said, "So has that money grown?" And it was that
Mm.
parent's job to then put the money into, the savings bucket. This was for your wants, and then this was going to go into investments. And the parents never set up that second step, and it was 3 years ago. And she's like, "It's actually making the same as what's in your high yield savings account because I never set that up." But like, good question, kid. You
Yes.
remembered, and so
Yes.
if you're able to, as a parent, set that up now, where the house money for that really long term goal goes in.
Yeah.
Money in the stock market has in the past doubled every 7 years, so that
Mhm.
can really make, if she's 9 years old and she has 21 years for that to grow, like, it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, that is huge. That is critical. What are some other things that like I'm thinking about well these are the like logistical aspects, right? Like here's the system, here's the account, here's what we're savings, here's like learning about what does investment mean. But where does that kind of emotional relationship with money come in? Can you teach that to a human at all, let alone a kid versus an adult?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that Well, first, modeling that the money that we put aside, like, I think that the system helps with the emotional piece because it's my light went out, but that's okay. Um, the system helps with taking a little bit of the emotion out of it because when I was a kid, my parents were pretty good about talking with money, but my sister would always say things like, at one point my dad lost his job and my parents didn't really make a big deal out of it. My sister's older than me. She'd be like, "We're in a financial hellhole. We can't afford anything." Like,
We're
and
in
then
a crisis.
like, and then I was stressed about like all of these things that, my sister is very dramatic, as you can tell. But like things like that leave a child feeling like scarcity mindset and fight
Mhm.
or flight with money. And whereas if it's kind of like, oh, dad and I sit down every month and we decide based on how much is coming in, like if we can afford to do this thing this month
Mhm.
or if we can't. And I think talking about it sort of like it's a bigger thing now about talking about people's relationships with food
Yeah.
because when we were younger, there was like all these bad foods, good foods, and now trying to neutralize and like we eat
Yeah.
this to fuel our body. Like we work for money so that we can pay for things that we want to do. And like
Yeah.
it's, sometimes we can pay for those things and sometimes we can't. And it just depends on, how our numbers are looking. So trying to not punish like
Yeah.
driving home from the mall and saying, "Oh, we spent all this money. Dad's gonna be so mad." Like all of those
Mhm.
kinds of
Mhm.
things that you see on TV or in families. I think trying to remove those kind of statements and those kind of emotions and trying to make it a little bit more black and white about what we can do and what we can't. I don't know if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think, like, the connotation of it, of, like, the emotional language and the storytelling behind it. Like, I remember and I've mentioned this on the show before, but, like, I grew up with I mean, money was always, always, always tight, and, my nana cleaned houses for people and who were rich and, like, going on trips and doing remodels and, like, all of the things, and one of her favorite phrases that she still uses to this day is like, "Oh, well, that must be nice. That must be nice." And it was always this, like, othering of what people who had money were choosing to spend their money on was, like, a bad thing or it was negative, and then you have to work really hard for the money, and so it was really interesting of just the kind of emotional weights that that has continued to kinda show up in my life, but even things like I've tried to correct our language when saying we're choosing to not spend our money on that versus that's too expensive. Because like nothing oh, there's a lot of things that are ridiculously expensive, but like you can save and allocate money for almost whatever in your current bracket in your current life. Like you choosing to spend money on something might be ridiculous than what choose to spend my money on something. And so it's all relative. So I think watching yourself where you're assigning that language that doesn't actually mean anything, it's just your opinion, so
Totally, and it's a judgment, like,
Mhm.
from how other people are going to live their lives, which is, like, ideally something that we're trying not to instill in our kids anyway, right? Like,
Yeah.
people can live their lives how they wanna live them as long as it's not hurting,
Mhm.
someone else, and I think giving them that empowerment and, if you work hard and you put your money in the right places, hopefully you can spend it on the things that you want. You can't have everything that you want, but you can have different things if you put your time and energy into it the
If
same
you
way as
prioritize
anything
it,
else.
yeah.
Yeah, just like money is a tool just like anything else
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that sense.
Well, let's get back to the growth of your business and the initial stage of what you shared with me early on is that you were in the teaching industry and then you kept advising a lot on wealth and money and investments. And then you wanted to leave the teaching industry to start this career in this business. What was that timeline looking like? And what were the first 6 to 12 months of that business looking like?
So I didn't necessarily want to leave or get out of the teaching industry. I actually had an accident and I wasn't able. So I had my business. Well, I was teaching and I
Hmm.
started helping people for fun and for free. And then someone offered to pay me to do this.
You're like, okay.
He's like, "I'll give you $100 to come to your house," or whatever, and I was like, "Okay, sure. I mean, if
Great.
you wanna do that." So, that's how I ended up starting with one-on-one, and I felt like I was helping a lot of people with the same things one-on-one, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
basics were similar, so then I thought, well, I could teach classes on this just like how I teach with my students and cover the basics. And so that's why now I offer both because some people want the fully one on one and some
Mhm.
people want to pay a little bit less and learn with a group setting. So like I said, that's why I offer a little bit of both. But I was doing both and with a teaching schedule, for example, in the summer, that's when I offered my first larger class because I had the time to be able to put into that. Whereas when I was teaching full time with, trying to schedule the one-on-ones and things that could be a little bit difficult, maybe in the weekend or in the evening.
Mhm.
But anyway, back to the point. I had a car accident and I had a brain injury. So I
Oof.
was not able to be in the classroom with my students full time during the day in the same way that I used to be able to. So the business was actually like really useful in like A, financially, but B, for my mental health. I had something to pour into and I had something that I could do from Zoom. I had something that, I could cancel if I needed to, if I had a doctor's appointment. So I had like a huge year and a half of crazy stuff, neurosurgery, like
Yeah.
a huge life shift. And the business really helped me provide something for me to do and financial support during that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't necessarily wanting to leave. It was that I wasn't able to do my current job anymore. And so this was a really beneficial thing that I had going on otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, I worked with someone for many years who had a brain injury from a car accident, and man, the transition after that, at least for our partnership and our business, like, I mean, years of not just therapy and work, but from one version, she was literally one version one day, and then the accident happened, and it was like, "Oh, you were almost a completely different person." And how long it took for her to get back to, like, what felt like normal for her. And so being able to rely on your own thing, your own clients, your own hours, your own way of showing up is I mean, I think it's why a lot of us do this, and a lot of us come and bring to the table chronic illness and kiddos and other dynamics and issues, and so I'm so happy that you had that as something that was, I think, kindling and then was your option and was the viable solution for you.
Yeah, it was like when you can't do much and being able to have something to like pour your heart into, and it's so rewarding helping people with their money. Like I just felt like so much purpose
Yeah,
again after, I also felt a lot of purpose being in the classroom with my students, but having the business as something else to do when I couldn't do much at all, like I will forever be really grateful for that
yeah.
time.
How long ago was that?
It was in 2023.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so still, like, you're still, I feel like, in the thick of it a little bit of just, like, recalibrating what life looks like and business looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot happened in that time, and I've been pretty much it took me like a year and a half to get better and get my life on track. So I feel like I've been pretty good for the last, I guess, year and a half at this point.
Yeah,
But it was, like you said, a whole transition upside down. And that really brings me back to it made my core message of my business stronger
for
in that
sure.
I had an emergency fund and I had investments. Like, financially, I was okay, and my number one priority after the accident was not even making money because I was okay. It was, like, finding something to do with my life and my time that, like,
Mhm.
could work with my schedule, and so I feel like the preparation that I had done and the financial education I had done for myself really helped me, and that is what people in any industry, business owners, but business owners especially, but anyone
Yes.
who does any job where you could stop being capable of doing that from a mental from a health perspective needs to have an emergency fund.
Well, and it's the thing that's like, I know a lot of people who have their own businesses because of health reasons or family or whatever, and I'm one of them at one point in this business and in this space was doing this for literally health and family reasons, but didn't have the runway to if those health and family reasons flared up, I mean, my income drastically dipped. And so it's one of those things where it's so interesting to me, and I think it comes back to the financial literacy piece of understanding your cash flow and your runway. And, maybe this is more of like a bookkeeper financial conversation, but understanding that your literal runway is so critical when planning out your year. Like, I'm looking at my year right now, and I pulled up my runway yesterday to see where I was, and knowing it's February 18th at the time that we're recording this, but knowing in a few short months summer is going to be here and my kid's going to be home, and we've got camps and we've got vacations and we've got everything. So planning my work with my clients, my invoices with my clients, everything around that time frame so that I can still pay myself, and
Mhm.
I can still pay my contractor, and I can still serve clients and get to do this job in a level that works with the benefits not dipping.
Yes, and it's so much more. Well, it's important as someone who works for themselves. I don't wanna say more because if there is anyone listening here who
Sure.
has a 9 to 5 that, you could lose that too. So,
Yes, yes.
yes, the runway is so important, and budgeting for that is difficult.
Mhm.
When you have an inconsistent income and you have bills to pay,
Yep.
that's an entirely like, we don't learn how to budget in school for a 9 to 5 job. So what about when your income is inconsistent? And I'd be happy to talk about that if our conversation leads there, but that's a whole nother skill that business owners need to learn.
Yeah, well, and I mean, let's talk about that because quite literally, for full transparency, guys, I'll air out my dirty laundry for you. So I started using Relay in 2023, so that I could do the like profit first, 5 business accounts really easily. It's set up to be profit first. It's incredible. I love Relay. And so I was already using the income, my OpEx, and my owner pay, and then my taxes account. So I was like diversifying, every dollar that came in would automatically get sorted out. But I had the
Amazing.
savings over here, and I was like, well, I'm not making enough to save. I'm not making enough to save. I need every dollar to go to, paying expenses and paying myself. I don't make enough to save. And finally, I had a conversation with someone who I ended up doing a VIP bookkeeping day with, who's incredible. And it's just something along the lines of just like, you're never going to feel like you make enough to save, like ever. Like if you made a dollar, you made enough to save if you allocate that, like
Mhm.
period. And it was just like, oh, okay. And so I did not turn on the transfer to savings account until I think September of October of last year. So 2025. And what's so funny is that, like, in the same way that and my nervous system is used to money stacking up in expenses because that's where I'm drawn to, money also stacks up when you save. And to see that, like, come January was like, oh, I have this much money in savings, and I only started transferring 10% of my income into savings. That's bananas. And I have this much already here, and I didn't touch it. And I got on that VIP day and I was like, okay, so I started saving and I have this much money and now I don't know what to do with it. Like, well, what do I do with it? Literally. So it was so funny of just the concept of like, if you're making anything, you have enough to save.
And that is so full circle from the very beginning of this conversation with your daughter and the
Yes.
toothpaste and the, saving for a Nintendo DS and then
Yep.
putting money in for her future house. Because if she gets $10 for, a gift, then that's $10 that she could figure out where to put it. And I also like the idea of starting with a small amount with savings.
Yeah.
10% is actually a lot to start
She
with.
did tell me that was a lot. And so I've bumped it down to 6%.
But I mean, like, if you start with, 1% and then next month you're gonna go to 1.5%, you're gonna feel it less
Yes.
in that way, because it's a huge thing to adjust with, and I think the smallest amount that you can physically, like, unclench your hands off of and
Yeah.
just, like, put to savings, then when you see it add up for the next month, you can do a little bit more and a little bit more, and
Yep.
it's like using that dopamine hit and using the "I can do this,"
Yes.
as your motivation for the
Yeah.
next month.
Well, and I as someone who has had a much I've had a longer unhealthy relationship with money than a healthy, like, period. And as someone who never saw myself as someone who would be comfortable with having money conversations and looking at the money and saving the money and then being able to make decisions because I have saved this money. Like even having the conversation of, oh, I had this money sitting here and it's not allocated for anything. What do I get to do with it? I've never thought I would be able to have that conversation. So this is all new for me. But even like,
Congrats.
thank you. It feels really great. And what's so wild is that I never thought I it's not that I never thought I could do it or that I truly never thought I would feel the, like, abundance in the having the plethora of it. I never understood how that would feel in my body, how that would feel in my business, and then the side effects of having that, meaning I'm not gonna pay for that thing over here. I'm gonna cut that software. I'm gonna make those decisions faster and easier because I can see the growth of it instead of just knowing, well, what's one more expense because I'm spending all this money anyways.
Mm.
It is such a big difference when it flips to the other side, as I'm sure you've seen countless times. But for people who are still in the thick of it, like I promise you, like 3 months into my savings journey, and I'm like, holy shit, I can do anything now. Like, I want to do more of this.
Yes.
Mhm,
I love that, and that's the empowerment that,
mhm.
like, everybody deserves.
Yeah,
Everybody
yes.
deserves to be in the driver's seat with your money and telling it what to do and where it goes, but when we're not taught that, we don't feel that way, and we're just especially if you've always seen people be, uh, I'm not thinking of the word right now, but kind of like pulled or dragged by their bills and their
Yeah.
expenses, like your
Yep,
family, if that's
yep.
always been the driving force in all the decisions you made is paying your bills and trying to keep your family afloat and everybody alive and food on the table, then that's exactly how you're going to think and you're going to spend every single dollar that
Yes.
comes in. And that's going to be your mindset with it instead of I'm in control of this. And like I've had to have hard conversations with clients before where they might be in an apartment that is way over what they can safely be
Yeah,
in
yeah.
but they can safely be in based on like they don't have any extra to save because they've overcommitted themselves to these expenses. So I think that like you said, getting rid of those expenses or and making that conscious decision. And of course, if you're in a lease, that's not an easy thing to do. But in planning for the next year, like that's a decision. You are in control of that money. You could be in a place that is less expensive. You could be, there are other things that you can decide to do that can put money into your pocket towards savings and they're not easy and sometimes they don't look exciting or glamorous but
Mhm.
like the money that you make, it's up to you where you're going to put it instead of the expenses telling you what to do.
And that's exactly it, like, my entire life has been, well, the expenses get first say, and and then on top of that mentality, I was raised on the, like, "Okay, well, whatever's left, I deserve a treat. I deserve the
Mhm.
thing. I deserve to go shopping or to spend the money here or to do this because of how hard I've worked, and I had to pay all these bills, so I deserve this." And lived that for a very long time, and it definitely leads to, like, overspending on just, like, bullshit you don't need in the house or your clothes or eating or whatever your vice is, and eating out, like, not feeding yourself, but, like, eating out
Yeah.
extra, and y I truly did not ever even think that there was, like, a different way to feel about that until I mean, for me, it was just like, I'm so tired of this being the narrative. There has to be another way. There literally has to be another way. I feel like for so long I was working so hard and in a business that I love, but so we work hard in this industry and in
Yes.
this business and that the effort wasn't matching what I was getting and it was truly of like what I was allowing myself to get. The income was there, but
You're
I wasn't
paying everybody else.
exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's a hamster wheel because, like you said,
Mhm.
with the little treat or this or that, like, yes, you deserve things, but you are very much adding an additional expense to yourself
Yes.
when you get
Yes.
that thing. So like, don't complain about all your expenses when or you can complain, but you're choosing to
But
add
you chose
another
that.
one in doing that. Yeah, which is like a harsh reality to
Yeah.
face. And it's not, and also something that is not our fault as consumers is that there's always something else to spend our money on
Yep.
because of, marketing. Like, marketing is great and it leads people to lots of things that change their lives and help them. But another part of this whole $1 billion industry of people not being great at managing their money is that we have a huge overconsumption
Yep.
issue in our country. And so then, like, there are just so many. You have to be in control because you could spend your money every place. You could spend every dollar that you don't have, every dollar the credit card company is willing to give you, because
Yep.
everybody will take your money if you're willing to give it to them.
Yes, 100%. And I shared about this last year, but we've repeated it again for this year and added on another layer. So in the journey of me forcing myself to have more money conversations, because the more exposure therapy I can do for myself, the easier it's going to get. And that is true. It does get easier. So last year, my husband and I started like monthly. We would meet once a month. We would go out to get a beer or a coffee because I was like, I that's when I want the
You need your
treat.
treat.
I need to
You
get out of
deserve
the
it
house.
because you're looking at your
I'm
money.
in this zone, right? And we're going to talk about our goals and where we're at and where we're headed and what's going on. And we weren't even budgeting at that point. I wasn't ready to like pull up Monarch and like look at all the things. I'm like, we just need to have a high level conversation first. We literally did that for a year before I was like, okay, now I'm ready to like now go deeper and look at all. Cause I mean, it was truly like, I'll just start crying. Like it's
Mhm.
just such this like trigger response of looking at it and allocating it and feeling judged for spending it and where I'm spending it, even though I've stopped spending a lot. Like it's just a lot of things. And so now we're at the point where we will set I'm doing like quarterly like sprint goals for us. And so it's both projects we want to do at the house that don't cost any money. It's just like cleaning up this closet or whatever. But then it's also like this year I want to get the house painted. I want to take a trip with our kid. Like what is that going to look like? Let's talk about it now so we can allocate the funds for that, and having this conversation in a way that like we're not fighting about it and I'm not crying as much and the things are easier to be talked about. And I just started last year. Like that's what's crazy too.
But that's such huge progress to be, and the fact that you and your husband are able to sit down and talk about these things and be on the same page, because a lot of people who I work with, they might be signing up for my program without their partner
Yeah.
because their partner's not on board, and now they're having to put money in a separate place or a separate account because they need to look out for themselves, because
Yeah.
which is a very common thing. And so
Yep.
people who are listening, if you are in that, you're not alone. I see that constantly.
Oh, so many. Yes.
And so the fact that you're able to do that, like, those are my clients who are like, "Yes, we talked about this today." I'm like, "You are my
Yes.
superstar,
Yes.
top of the pack," because it doesn't mean that necessarily you're gonna be on the same page about every single thing, but being able to talk
Right.
about it is like the biggest first step.
Truly, truly. And understanding that like it it may not be tomorrow, but it could be this summer that we could do it or this fall, or maybe we're collectively going to decide that that's a next year thing. And that being understanding more of like, I mean, quite literally, even 5 years ago, me would just been like, well, if I want the house painted, why can't we get the house painted? And if you're going to say no, then that tells me you don't even care about this house. Like that
Mhm.
is where my mind went. And I'm like, oh, that old me. Like okay, got it, got
You
it.
can see the growth.
Oh, we can see the growth for sure, for sure, for sure. I love it. Okay, well, talk to me about now as we're kind of going into wrapping up. Talk to me about from the business side of things, where you're headed this year and what your goals are with your business.
Well, I mean, I think that continuing to grow and help more people in ways that, okay, well, from a marketing perspective, I should have mentioned that when I started, I was also using social media. I was providing, information on there. And that's where the person came to me and was like, "Can I pay you?" Because I
Yeah,
was just posting financial knowledge. But something that I've been doing a lot more of are in person events, with places,
nice.
partnering with, instead of using, because social media was great for me in the beginning, but I find that these days it's exhausting, and I would rather go meet people in person, do in-person events, and partner with other organizations and be brought in that way, rather than using social media as my main source for marketing. So something, for example, this week I'm going to a university and I'm doing two events for the university, which will be fun. It will be a great way to meet people. I, may have some clients from that, or I may be brought in. There might be some people who see me there who bring me to an additional place. So I feel like building trust in person, because online, I find people online and I don't know if I can trust them. Like it's different than it used to be even a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
Everything made by AI, and just
Mhm.
like the amount of profiles that are like whack, or people who are messaging my followers that are me, but
Oh.
they have an extra like
Oh,
S in their
yeah.
name, and then people like
I
I
hate that.
I have had clients pay money to people who were like a finance guru, and then they paid money to them online to try to help them with stocks or something, spent thousands of dollars, and then they've come to me and they're like, I really clearly I need financial education because they're like it's rampant on there, and I know that it's important to stand out and be real online, but I think that it can be very difficult
Yeah.
because we're up against so much crap, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
And I think things like this, like a podcast, for example, is a great way for people to get to know you and understand that what you're offering is
I'm a real
real
human.
and that you really care about them. Yes. So more things like this,
Mhm.
in the sense of podcasts, and then also the in-person events, partnering with universities. I've partnered with employers. I'm also working on some government contracts because those
Nice.
are the kinds of places where I can be brought in and it's a little bit easier for trust to be built, and I can focus on what I'm doing rather than trying so hard to build trust in that I am a real person, because
Yeah.
using Instagram and online social media channels for that has just been like very up and down and exhausting for my mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and talk about bigger contracts too when you're working with universities or government or, getting into corporate consulting. I think like financial literacy, as you know, everyone needs it no matter what level they're at. And yeah, there are some agencies that I've worked with and departments that I've worked with where I'm like, you need to be brought into that team because part of the team morale is also understanding how the lack of financial literacy impacts how they show up for work and the type of team player that they are. And like truly, it impacts so many things. And the conversations that directors are having with their team members who are working with really unique groups of people that I'm like, you don't understand their drive to be here is completely different than what you're wanting their drive to be. And
Mhm.
that is not in alignment with your expectations. And it's about money and it's about financial literacy.
And if we couldn't trust our schools to provide that education, which now, some schools are getting better with it, there are more things being passed, but all of the people who are in our current adult population
Right.
did
Did
not
not
get
get
that.
it.
So then you're exactly expecting people to show up to work. And there are lots of things that, employers are trying to offer in terms of mental health and
Yeah.
different like therapy services, or just a variety of health services, and I think that the financial health services are still lacking in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So yes, if you have any
Yeah.
companies or recommendations that you want to send my way, I think that it is a huge gap, and it's
Yeah.
been something that has helped me because it makes me get to do more of the things that I like and less of the things that I don't like, which can sometimes be posting online.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, and this is like my whole message here with this show of like getting y'all as service providers to do more of the things that you like and that are impactful. And you can be a lot closer to the source of a closed client if you get out of the bubble that is this digital online marketing space. Because I think it is so, especially if you got started in the Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever and it worked, then it's like, okay, this is what the channel that's always going to work and it's always worth my time. And that doesn't have to be true. If it doesn't light you up and if it feels difficult and if you're getting shady, especially in your industry, I feel like, oh man. then leave it. Then find a new platform of connecting with people. And I think a lot of people are craving that in-person connection this year for sure.
I think so too, and the in-person just after COVID in general, like, the
Yeah.
amount of different opportunities for in-person, even with a women's run club or a brunch club, like, I've seen all of these different clubs and things pop up, and
Yeah.
so I had an event at a coffee shop with, and these small little things are, like, so fun to me, they're such a good way
Yes.
to meet people, and then I get clients out of it, so it's been
Exactly.
a more enjoyable way to spend my time and energy for end of last year and into this year.
Love it, love it. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on and for, I feel like we had like two-part conversation of like money mindset and my own issues and then my kid and business stuff. So thank you for being willing to, dive into the weeds with me. This was so fun. Can you let my listeners know where they can learn more about you and maybe connect with you offline, online in a different way?
Well, you can start with Instagram because
Yeah.
I do go on there and you can learn a lot about me from some of my pinned videos and it is a helpful source. I love it because when people look me up, they can find these things
Yeah.
that have already been created. So my Instagram is at Brooke Builds Wealth. And my website is www.brookbuildswealth.com. And I have a ton of free resources on my website. I have a free guide that helps you get started with investing and understanding how to set yourself up and your initial plan without being, scared about it.
Yeah.
So that's for free on my website. And I have lots of other resources that I put out on there. So that would be Instagram, that would be my website, and then I'm on all the other socials as Brooke Builds Wealth or Brooke Busi. That's my last name, Busi. So LinkedIn. But you could also just send me an email because that is an offline online
Yeah.
way for us to speak.
Awesome. Brooke, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Sell the Damn Service. If you loved what you heard today, do me a quick favor. Hit subscribe, leave a rating, and drop a review. It seriously helps more service providers find the show, and it keeps me yapping into this mic every week. It's a nice, free, easy lift way for you to support the show. And hey, if you've got a friend who needs to hear this, please send this episode their way. The more people selling their damn services with confidence, the better this whole industry gets. See you next time.